on, friends? For years, Harley-Davidson did not recommend the use of synthetic oils in their engines. But nowadays, Harley-Davidson has their own brand with the Syn 3. Now they are recommending this oil for use in pretty much any Harley-Davidson engine that you want to use it in, including the older engines, which Harley-Davidson previously stated would likely explode if you used synthetic oil in them. So, which is it? Should you go ahead and use synthetic oil in your motorcycle? Or should you stick with conventional? Or go back to conventional oil? The jury is really still out on ring seal, oil consumption, and just overall longevity of the engine. Maybe it was because Harley-Davidson did not have their own brand of synthetic oil. For years, Harley-Davidson had their own brand of conventional oil, and of course, Harley-Davidson wants you to use Harley-Davidson oil and nothing else. Now, there's still a lot of debate on whether you should run a synthetic oil or a conventional oil in your Harley-Davidson motorcycle. Just like no two engines are alike, no two engines that are almost identically similar on paper, they're going to react and operate a little differently with different kind of oils in them, whether it be conventional or synthetic. And interestingly enough, some newer Harley-Davidson engines might actually be better off running good old conventional oil instead of a synthetic oil. Before we get too far into the video today, please don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. Now guys, synthetic oils have lots of wonderful properties about them. There's a lot of good reasons to use synthetic oils in your Harley-Davidson. But in my opinion, you really want to be pretty mindful of what engine you put synthetic oil in. Synthetic oils are excellent at lubricity, and they also have a very high level of detergents in it. Synthetic oils are just basically a lot cleaner and have a higher detergency than conventional oils. So if you have an older motorcycle that has spent its entire life running on basically conventional oil, and you go and switch that over straight to synthetic oil, especially a high quality synthetic oil with a lot of detergent, you're gonna have some oil leaks more than likely. But is this due to the synthetic oil, or is there something else going on here? Conventional oil over time will tend to varnish over worn gaskets and seals. Now when you go and you put that high quality synthetic oil in there, it's going to clean all that varnish off as the bike's running. And as that varnish gets worn away, caught up in the filter and dissolved by that high detergent oil, you're going to start to have oil leaks. So the oil leaking isn't the synthetic oil's fault. It's your worn gaskets and seals, which are basically being masked by having that varnish from the conventional oil. Now, if you have a newer engine, low mileage engine, or even a fresh build, going with synthetic oil isn't a bad idea at all because you've got a lot cleaner, fresher seals and gaskets in there. But what if you have a freshly rebuilt engine? Should you break your freshly rebuilt engine or your brand new factory engine in on synthetic oil? This is a pretty good debate right here. Now, there's two schools of thought when it comes to breaking in an engine on synthetic oil. One side says that synthetic oil is too slick, it's not going to allow the contacting parts to mate properly, and it's not going to allow the rings to seal properly just for the fact that it's too slick. Using a conventional oil, you get a little bit more metal-to-metal contact and you get a better meshing of all the parts within the engine. And not to mention ring seal, we're going to take a look at some information a little bit later in the video regarding the Milwaukee 8, which was kind of interesting regarding the Milwaukee 8 and ring seal, so stick with me till later on in the video. I personally like to run conventional oil for a 5,000 mile break-in. Number one, because it's cheaper. Number two, I'm going to be draining this oil at 500 miles. And then again, I'm going to be refilling it with conventional oil, which I'm going to drain again at 1,000 miles. And yeah, maybe I am kind of from the school of thought that I like to use conventional oil for the break-in because I feel like it lets the parts and the rings and everything just mesh and get to know each other a little better. Now, of course, once that 1,000 miles is done and I change the oil again at 1,000 miles, of course I'm going back with a full synthetic and a clean, high-quality filter. Now, I can already hear somebody out there going, you can't mix conventional and synthetic. Yes, you can mix conventional and synthetic. Essentially, what you're doing is you're creating your own synthetic blend. It doesn't hurt anything, but you are going to detract from the properties, the good properties of the synthetic oil, diluting it with a conventional oil. Now, obviously, if you're doing a quick changeover after a break-in period from conventional to synthetic, you're not going to have enough conventional oil there to really make a difference and dilute the synthetic. And yes, if you are running a conventional or a synthetic, you can switch from conventional to synthetic, and you can go from synthetic back to conventional if you have an issue that you need to rectify that you feel may be caused by synthetic oil. Now, one reason why you might switch back to a conventional oil, and we're going to talk about a good reason here a little later in the video, but one reason is if you put synthetic in an older engine and you start experiencing a bunch of seal leaks and all kinds of issues, yeah, it's probably time to go ahead and drain that synthetic out and go back with the conventional oil that you were using and hope that it'll actually seal up, and hopefully that it'll varnish back over your gaskets and seals and it'll quit leaking. That doesn't usually happen though once all that's cleaned off. But if you have a fresh engine and you start off on synthetic oil, a good high quality synthetic oil, keep it changed, keep up with your maintenance of course. This will help keep your gaskets and your seals soft and pliable for years to come, and it'll help eliminate a lot of headaches down the road for you. Now, when it comes to Harley-Davidson engines, they are weird, no doubt about that. Some Harley-Davidson engines just do not like synthetic oils. Some Harley-Davidson engines, even though they're exactly alike on paper, they have performed differently with synthetic versus conventional. There are some engines out there that will do better on conventional. Some guys running synthetic oil experience a lot of blow-by, the rings don't seal properly, and they might get a lot of carryover. Now, we all are aware of the issues with the Milwaukee 8s and the blow-by. Now, I noticed some very interesting information from Fueling. Fueling running their vented dipstick actually noticed something in all of their testing. They noticed less blow-by on a Milwaukee 8 engine using conventional oil, actually getting a great amount of reduced blow-by versus synthetic oil, which is very interesting to me. So conventional oil relieving the crankcase pressure with the Fueling vented dipstick actually greatly reduced the amount of blow-by and oil sumping on the Milwaukee 8 engines according to Fueling. And not to mention if you also stay off the rev limiter too and keep up with your maintenance and don't neglect anything. So guys, that is some really interesting information coming out of Fueling. And guys, I want to know in the comments, have you guys experienced anything like that? Have you went to synthetic oil and all of a sudden started having oil consumption issues only to switch back to a conventional oil and your oil consumption issues actually went away? So guys, if you're on the fence about switching to a synthetic from conventional or vice versa, yes, some engines just plain do better on conventional oil. I wouldn't take synthetic oil and go pour it in an old shovel head that's got a lot of miles on it. You're just asking for trouble there. Now, if I have a freshly rebuilt shovel head, yeah, I might be a little bit more inclined to use the synthetic oil in it. Now, while synthetic oil has a lot of great properties, it's just not necessarily maybe right for every single Harley-Davidson engine out there. So when it comes to choosing between synthetic and conventional, you just really have to use your best judgment there and really pay attention to your oil. Look at your dipstick, get a baseline, figure out if you're actually consuming oil or not, experiencing any carryover or blow-by. If you're constantly adding oil with a synthetic, just for shits and giggles, you might try going back to a conventional and see if that helps solve your issues. If Fuelings is recommending this with their vented dipstick on the Milwaukee 8s, I'm highly inclined to believe there's something to this. So guys, no worries switching back and forth, and yes, you can mix the two oils. But anyhow guys, that's all I've got for you today. If you guys enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. But guys, until next week, you stay safe on the streets, ride smart, dodge those cars, and I'll catch you guys back here next week with a brand new video. Thanks for watching.